The Speech of Miss Polly Baker by Benjamin Franklin. The speech of Miss Polly Baker before a court of judicature at Connecticut in New England, where she was prosecuted the 5th time for having a bastard child, which influenced the court to dispense with her punishment and induced one of her judges to marry her the next day. May it please the honorable bench to indulge me a few words. I am a poor, unhappy woman who have no money to fee lawyers to plead for me, being hard put to get a tolerable living. I shall not trouble your honors with long speeches, for I have not the presumption to expect that you may, by any means, be prevailed on to deviate in your sentence from the law in my favor. All I humbly hope is that your honors will charitably move the governor's goodness on my behalf, that my fine may be remitted. This is the 5th time, gentlemen, that I have been dragged before your courts on the same account. Twice I have had to pay heavy fines, and twice have been brought to public punishment for want of money to pay for those fines. This may have been agreeable to the laws, I do not dispute it. But since laws are sometimes unreasonable in themselves and therefore repealed, and others bear too hard on the subject in particular circumstances, and therefore there is left a power somewhere to dispense with the execution of them, I take the liberty to say that I think this law by which I am punished is both unreasonable in itself and particularly severe with regard to me, who have always lived an inoffensive life in the neighborhood where I was born, and I defy my enemies, if I have any, to say I've ever wronged a man, woman, or child. Abstracted from the law, I cannot conceive, may it please your honors, what the nature of my offense is. I have brought 5 fine children into the world at the risk of my own life. I have maintained them well by my own industry without burdening the township, and could have done it better if had not been for the heavy charges and fines I have paid. Can it be a crime, in the nature of things I mean, to add to the number of the king's subjects in a new country that really wants people? I own I should think it rather a praiseworthy than a punishable action. I have debauched no other woman's husband, nor enticed any innocent youth. These things I never was charged with, nor has anyone the least cause of a complaint against me, unless perhaps the minister or the justice, because I have had children without being married, by which they've missed a wedding fee. But can even this be a fault of mine? I appeal to your honors. You are pleased to allow I don't want sense, but I must be stupid to the last degree not to prefer the honorable state of wedlock to the condition I have lived in. I always was, and still am, willing to enter it. I doubt not my behaving well in it, having all the industry, frugality, fertility, and skill and economy appertaining to a good wife character. I defy any person to say I ever refused an offer of that sort. On the contrary, I readily consented to the only proposal of marriage that was ever made me, which was when I was a virgin, but too easily confiding in the person's secrecy that made it. I am unhappily lost my own honor by trusting to his, for he got me with child and then forsook me. That very person you all know. He has now become a magistrate of this county, and I had hopes he would have appeared this day on the bench and have endeavored to moderate the court in my favor. Then I should have scorned to have mentioned it, but I must complain of it as unjust, unequal, that my betrayer and undoer, the first cause of all my faults and miscarriages, if they must be deemed such, should be advanced to honor and power in the same government that punishes my misfortunes with stripes and infamy. I shall be told 'tis like that were no act of assembly in this case. The precepts of religion are violated by my transgressions. If mine, then, is a religious offense, leave it, gentlemen, to religious punishments. You have already excluded me from all the comforts of your church communion. Is that not sufficient? You believe I have offended heaven and must suffer eternal fire? Will that not be sufficient? What need is there then of your additional fines and whippings? I own, I do not think as you do, for if I thought what you call a sin was really such, I would not presumptuously commit it. But how can it be believed that heaven is angry at my having children, when to the little done by towards it, God has been pleased to add his divine skill and admirable workmanship in the formation of their bodies, and crowned it by furnishing them with rational and immortal souls? Forgive me, gentlemen, if I talk a little extravagantly on these matters. I am natural and useful actions into crimes by your prohibitions. Reflect a little on the horrid consequences of this law in particular. What numbers of procured abortions and how many distressed mothers have been driven by the terror of punishment and public shame to imbrue, contrary to nature, their own trembling hands in the blood of their helpless offspring. Nature would have endued them to nurse it up with a parent's fondness. 'Tis the law, therefore, 'tis the law itself that is guilty of all these barbaries and murders. Repeal it then, gentlemen. Let it be expunged forever from your books. And on the other hand, take into your wise consideration the great and growing number of bachelors in the country, many of whom, from the mean fear of the expense of a family, have never sincerely and honorably courted a woman in their lives, and by their manner of living, leave unproduced, which I think is little better than murder, hundreds of their posterity to the thousandth generation. Is not theirs a greater offense against the public good than mine? Compel them then, by law, either to marry or pay double the fine of fornication every year. What must poor young women do, whom custom had forbid to solicit the men who cannot force themselves upon husbands, when the laws take no care to provide them any, and yet severely punish if they do their duty without them? Yes, gentlemen. Yes, gentlemen. I venture to call it a duty. 'Tis the duty of the first and great command of nature, and of nature's God, increase and multiply, a duty from the steady performance of which nothing has been able to deter me, but for its sake I have hazarded the loss of the public esteem, and frequently incurred public disgrace and punishment, and therefore ought, in my humble opinion, instead of a whipping, to have a statue erected to my memory.